Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of the Catching Flies podcast. I am Stephen Burton. What a week we've had in the world of sports, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. To start it off, we wanted to just give a quick shout out to the Georgia Bulldogs family. Right after celebrating the championship parade this past Saturday, unfortunately, the team was stricken and a player was unfortunately lost in a tragic car accident. Devin Willock was 20 years old, an extremely bright future. It was looking like he was going to be the starting guard for the Bulldogs next year. Unfortunately, him and a recruiting staffer named Chandler LeCroy, another young lady, tragically passed in the early hours of Sunday morning. We just wanted to express our condolences to the Georgia family and to Devin and Chandler's families. I couldn't imagine, losing a child and to be so young and have such a bright future for both of them. It was just real tragic. And I wanted to give a quick shout out to them before we really dove into this week's episode. And here to help me break down everything that did happen this week, he is an author. He has a master's degree. He is a 49ers fan. And he might be the happiest man in the land. He is Pete Makatis. What's going on, Petey?
Hey, Stephen. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this week's episode. Catching Flies is here for you. We thank everyone who is listening to us right now. Before we dive into the show, I'd also like to go ahead and mention that we're doing some pretty good numbers on YouTube. We're enjoying our little bit of a resurgence here. And while we have your attention now, instead of waiting until the end of the video, I wanted to ask everybody, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Make sure you share this video. And if anything you need to say, please comment down below. We are happy to respond to anything you may need. But thank you for the great intro, Stephen. We are in the throes of the NFL playoffs. And we had it's that time of year. And we're going to focus on that while it's going on. That week in between the championship games and the Super Bowl, we're probably going to have something else going on. But for now, we're sticking with the NFL. And we want to just kind of go through what took place over Wild Card Weekend and just a little bit of depth there. The opening day was my 49ers. During that second quarter, not the happiest man in the land, but it turned around. 49ers took care of business in due time. The Chargers chargered, and we'll talk about that. They blew a 27-point first half lead, a 20-point halftime lead to the Jaguars. The Jaguars move on. They're in the final 8 of the NFL playoffs. That's pretty astounding. Buffalo got a scare against Miami. All the games they played this year were close. No surprise they played another one. Buffalo did. As the NCAA basketball tournament would say, they survived and advanced. I mean, that's all you can say about that. First big upset took place, unfortunately, under the dome in Minnesota, where the Giants avenged their earlier season loss to the Vikings. The Giants have moved on. The Sunday night game, we'll get a little bit into that in a second. The Bengals were able to hold on and beat the Ravens. And the Monday night game was, as we predicted, the most boring of the entire playoff weekend, unless you consider extra points being missed by kickers exciting. Dallas took pretty good care of Tampa Bay, knocking them and their 8-9 record out of the playoffs.
Never a doubt there.
Right. The key game to us was just based on the fact that the comeback that took place was the Chargers and the Vikings. And it was a low-key comeback. It never seemed like anything desperate was happening, or any big play took place. It was just like a slow, easy, methodical. Well, easy is a tough word, but a slow, methodical comeback. I mean, did you get that sense?
Yes, absolutely. The Jaguars weren't. It wasn't like they were coming out hitting 80-yard bombs. I mean, they were just methodically driving the field, and this was huge for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, to go from looking about as bad as you could possibly look in the first quarter with 3
All
interceptions,
right.
ended up having 4 in the first half, and then to completely flip that and to come out in the second half and go for 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. Like, it's impressive for a player so young to stay mentally focused and the team not to give up. I mean, what a comeback! You got to give it to him down in Duval.
So when we made our predictions last week, this was the only game where Steven and I both took the underdog. The
Yeah,
Chargers were favored in that game. And our main rationale wasn't so much Jacksonville, it was the
right.
Chargers. And there were 3
Yep,
big plays in this game that turned it around. 2 were a little pretty obvious. One is when the Chargers were up 30-20 and missed a 40-yard field goal. That's easy to spot. The highlights are going to cover that. The
right.
second, well, like technically the third, one that took place later in the game, Jacksonville scores to make it 30-26. And Nick Bosa decides he just wants to break, not Nick Bosa, pardon me, that's my guy, Joey Bosa, decides
Yeah,
he wants to break every helmet on the sideline and
right.
just needed to take 3 more steps, Bubba. He was walking off the field and then took off his helmet and slammed it on the ground. 3 more steps, you're on the sideline, and it's not a
I get
penalty. And then
I I get his
I do.
frustrations. The refs were terrible. They've been terrible all year. I mean, they're not going to get any better. But in the biggest moments, you're a captain or, a leader of the team at least, a superstar player. You've got to control your frustrations and be a leader there. And he
Right.
hurt his team.
And again, you're 3 steps from the sideline. Go do it on the
Literally.
sideline and you won't get a penalty. But
Right.
what that did was put the ball at the 1 yard line for a 2-point conversion, which they made. Now it's a 2-point game instead of a 3-point game winning field goal instead of a game tying field goal. But after the missed
Absolutely.
field goal, first play on offense for the Jaguars, they take a 9-yard sack. Next play, short pass about 3 yards past the line of scrimmage. The defender's there. Let him catch it, take him down. 3rd and 16. Instead, he interfered with him, gave him a first down, and put life back into Jacksonville. And that's the under the radar play that they're not going to talk about on other shows, but we're going to bring up because that
It was
really
massive.
changed it.
Absolutely. It swung all the momentum that wasn't already on Jacksonville's side. It gave them the rest. I mean,
Right.
this completely was like a panic. It sent the Chargers into a panic mode, and they just couldn't recover after that. They lost their confidence, they lost their swagger, they lost their lead.
I just wonder what would
So
happen, like what the NFL gods would do if the Chargers and the Falcons like ever met in a Super Bowl or something. And it's like it would be the biggest game of hot potato ever. You win this game. No, you win this game. We don't want it. We don't want it either. These are the 2 teams that blow leads like nobody's business. If they played each other, I think the field would implode and the game would just have to stop. I mean,
that's what I was going to say. Probably a tornado
yep.
or something would just take the stadium out the night before. The game just wouldn't happen.
Yeah. And the other game, this is the one game I predicted incorrectly. And I went back and listened to the show last week, and I could have sworn I put in there, oh, by the way, if Lamar doesn't play, I picked the Bengals, but I never did. I never actually made
Oh
that.
wow,
I never made that disclaimer, so I got to take the L on that one. I went 5-1 in my pick. So did Steven. Steven,
nice.
it can be said he picked his favorite team and they lost. That's the only game he got wrong. I got this game wrong, but I could have been right except for one huge play, definitely the biggest play of all of Wild Card Weekend. It's 3rd and goal, if I'm not mistaken. It could have been 2nd goal. I think it was 3rd and goal.
I think so.
And the Bengals must have watched the night before when this Jaguars scored a 2-point conversion from the 1 yard line by having 6'6" quarterback Trevor Lawrence just reach over the line and break the plane and get his touchdown. Well, they tried the same thing with Tyler Huntley. And we can argue who's better, who's good, who's that. Height does matter in this situation. Huntley's taller than both of us, but he's not as tall as Trevor Lawrence. He tried to reach it over
Sure.
the line, And Bengals linebacker Logan Wilson, man, he basically, you said it to me. This was Steven's words. I'm going to quote him here. It was like getting rejected at the rim, going up for a dunk.
Matumbo.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was Matumboed.
He got
Not
Matumboed. Exactly. That's what
today.
happened. Yeah, everything
Not
but the finger
today.
wag. Just smacked the ball out of his hand and fell right into Sam Hubbard's hands. And Hubbard's an athletic guy for a defensive end, but there are people on the football field faster than him. Yet he got the ball at the 2-yard line and jammed it all the way out, 98 yards for a 14-point swing, at the very least a 10-point swing. And
yes, definitely.
That's in a 7-point game. So those are the last points of the game. So what an amazing play by Logan Wilson. Sam Hubbard gets props too for running down, and the 3 guys that ran down on the convoy almost let him get tackled, almost blocked in the back. They avoided it. But
yeah, I was wanting to give Mark Andrews a little love there because
yeah.
he was the only one in the picture. You know, the Ravens just blew their chance, and you would think like they're all smashed together. There's going to be they basically started at the goal line, and the Ravens defenders were just the Ravens offense was just nowhere in the picture other than one guy, and to me that kind of explains that their team had basically given up on that. That was the nail in the coffin for them.
And then in a goal line formation like that, there's no wide receivers out there. There's no like Speetzers. I mean, the speed on the 1-yard line is
you got
not
some
as
running
useful.
backs.
Yeah.
You got some heavy hitters, but I don't know. I thought it was good effort. At least it had
absolutely.
to be mentioned because that's kind of stuff you could tell the guy's a dog when you don't give up on a play like that.
And nor should you. You should be if you have a better than 0% chance, you got to go for it. Unfortunately, someone like Tyler Huntley, who has some speed, was spending too much time complaining about the call. It's like, just go take care of business. The call. It's the NFL, bro. Everything gets reviewed.
Right.
Scoring plays, turnovers are automatic reviews, and they have this new quick review system, and it had gotten taken care of. It would have gotten taken care of. Go take care of your business first, and then let that play out. But he's a young guy too, so it's hard to get mad at him for it. But at the same time, stay in the moment, stay in the game. All NFL players. Can't tell you how many times you could have made a play and you're over there complaining to the ref instead. And then you realize, oh, I got to go. No one ever changed a referee's mind like that. No, so stop wasting your time, guys. So all that said, we have a divisional round coming up now, and we have 4 great matchups.
Absolutely.
That there are significant to reasonable favorites in all of these games. There's no pick'em spread. The shortest spread is 4 points, but anything can happen in the NFL, and we are not your typical sports journalists, especially football journalists. You'll never hear on this show that football is a one-on-one matchup between quarterbacks, because we're smarter than that. We understand a lot more goes into football. It's the biggest roster of any team sport, and it's the most ultimate team sport. Of course, the quarterback's important, of course, but there are other individual matchups that take place over the course of a game that dictate the results of that game more than anything else. And we're here to take a look at those. And we're going to pick a couple for each game, one kind of in the trenches and one kind of on the borders on the outside. Let us know where we think these games might go. We're going to start with the first game on the schedule, the Saturday afternoon game. It's going to be the upstart Duval representing Jacksonville Jaguars going up against the behemoth, the reigning 4-time AFC championship game appearing Kansas City Chiefs. And as is the case in the Patrick Mahomes era, the Chiefs are playing a home playoff game. So they're going to be hosting the Jaguars. They've never played on the road, folks, except neutral site Super Bowls. And this season they won't either. They might have to play a neutral site AFC championship game and Super Bowl, but they're not going into another team stadium. They're going to welcome the Jaguars, and they're going to welcome one of the best corners in football, and that's Tyson Campbell. If you're not paying enough attention, you got to understand this dude is running a show out there. His primary matchup in this game is probably going to be Juju Smith-Schuster. I can see them trying to match him up on Kelsey now and then, but they're kind of probably want someone bigger on Kelsey. But
Yeah.
if Campbell can take care of Juju, which shouldn't be that hard, they can roll coverage to the other players. What impact do you think that would have on Kansas City's offense?
Well, it's absolutely huge. If you've got an elite shutdown corner, and that's what Tyson Campbell has been this year. He's rated as like the sixth, seventh, eighth PFF corner. I mean, right in there. So he's been one of the best in the game, and he is 6'2", kind of a big corner. I like that matchup. Rolling him to Kelsey every now and then. Like uh, he's definitely physical enough. He was a bulldog, so I know a lot about this guy. But it's gonna be tough to stop Mahomes. I mean, it's like something out of a video game. When you say a guy has never played a road playoff game, it's like they're just on another level right now. Jacksonville's had an unbelievable season, but it's tough to play in the home of the Chiefs.
Right. Excellent analysis. And I knew you'd be able to give us some info on Campbell being a dog. He's a fast dude too. I mean,
He was a
he's
track star in
yeah,
high
he's
school
what you
down
want
at
in the modern
American
NFL
Heritage.
corner.
Absolutely.
All right. And flipping sides now, we're going to look at the line matchup, and the Chiefs have maybe the most underrated defensive player in the NFL in Chris Jones. Part of the reason for that is the dude's name is Chris Jones. It don't stand out.
Right.
The other reason is that the Chiefs historically in the last few years haven't had an elite defense. They've had good enough defenses, clearly. They've won a Super Bowl in the last 3 years. But Chris Jones kind of took Aaron Donald's place just this season, given that Donald missed a lot of time as the best interior lineman, defensive lineman
In the
in the
league.
NFL.
Yeah.
He's not better. We're not saying he's better than Aaron Donald, but just this season with Donald missing time, Jones took that spot. He's going to be predominantly looking at Brandon Scherf over at Jacksonville. And again, we want to reiterate that these matchups aren't necessarily going to happen on every play. It's just stuff we anticipate happening enough to be an impact. Now, Scherf signed that big contract with Jacksonville this year, coming off his stint with the Washington Blanks. They had different names the whole time he was there. So let's just say Washington. And, he's one of the top linemen in the league coming into this season.
Absolutely.
He was good this year. He wasn't his level good, still good. He would start for basically any team. Can he hold
Right.
up against Chris Jones? Jones is a pressure machine. Can he hold up
Yeah.
against that? And if he can't, what does that mean for Jacksonville's offense?
I think it means they're going to have a real bad day. I mean, Jacksonville, they're up and coming. They did have to overpay a little bit for a few guys to get them there,
Uh-huh.
but and Christian Kirk and Sheriff, but they for them they fortify their team and they got them to the playoffs. So you got to think it was at least worth it for this year.
Uh-huh.
As far as disrupting their offense, if he eats on the inside, it's going to make it for a long day for ETN, which ETN pretty much is Jacksonville's offense. So he can affect the game in more ways than one. He can make Trevor Lawrence have a real long day as far as pass rush, and then if ETN on sweeps and inside stuff, if he shuts that down, I think it could get ugly, unfortunately, for Jacksonville.
And I think the underrated aspect there too is that if he's breaking through the line like that from the inside, he might take away ATN's ability to get out into the pass game. He's gonna have to stay in and pass block. And it
Right.
might even precipitate him having to leave the game. And someone like JaMychal Hasty, who is not a
Hasty.
better
Yeah.
running back
No.
than Etienne, but he has more experience and he might be a better pass blocker. And he may need to stay
Right.
in the game to kind of help chip and whatnot. So it can affect all sorts of things. Scherf has a good chance to really show off to a national audience here. I'm not sure exactly who has the game, but if Collinsworth has the game, he'll point him out if he's having a good game, and that'll help his rep. So
Yeah, absolutely.
the later game, depending on what coast you're living on, the Saturday late afternoon / evening game will be the number one seeded Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC against their division rival, the New York Giants. And the Eagles swept them earlier this year. One game was competitive. The second game, well, by competitive, we mean like at least they played all their players. The final score wasn't competitive. The second game, the final score was competitive, but the game itself really wasn't, because kind of playoff seedings were set and the Giants didn't have their full roster out there. They certainly will this week. And one of the
Yeah.
guys they're bringing is Darius Slayton, who is kind of their number one wide receiver. And he had a good game. Him and Hodgins both played well against the Vikings, but Slayton is probably going to see James Bradberry for most of this game. Bradberry was signed by the Eagles this offseason from the Giants. So these guys kind of know each other. I'm not going to ask you, Steven, who has the advantage in this matchup, because Bradberry does. But
Yeah.
can Slayton do enough that Bradberry might need help, or maybe they do something different in their matchups so that the Giants can get their wide open offense going?
Well, first off, with the Giants, this is huge. Their entire team's healthy. They had 0 guys on the injury report against Minnesota, and being healthy this time of year is just, it can't be understated enough. That said, their offensive line played absolutely incredible, which led to Hodges and Slayton ripping up the Vikings' piss poor secondary. I have no other way to put it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I think if the O line plays good and Slayton, if you give him any amount of time, he's going to get open. I was really impressed with him last week. He made some incredibly difficult catches and just was flat out wide open a lot of times. So I definitely think he can impact the game, and it could be huge. But if he gets shut down and they don't get Saquon going, the offense could really have a tough time.
Yeah, and that said, if they can keep Bradberry on the island, they will not need to blitz. And the
Right.
Eagles had 50 sacks this season without blitzing. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, their D line is absolutely incredible. I mean, from Jordan Davis to bringing in trading for guys, like, they're stacked on the D line. They may have the best O line and D line in football.
They might,
Um,
and that's a hell of a transition to the O line of Philadelphia. And speaking of health, we're looking at
right.
Lane Johnson here, and Lane Johnson, he's what, a Hall of Famer or very
He's
close to
gotta
one.
be.
Yeah, I mean,
He's got to be a Hall of
he's not going to
Famer. I
get
mean,
that publicity because not only is he just an offensive lineman to many people, but he plays right tackle, and that's the
right.
less glorious position as opposed to left tackle. But
Sure.
hey, if your right tackle stops blocking, your team's gonna notice, right?
Right.
So yeah,
And when you got a guy who literally hasn't given up a sack since high school,
something
like,
like
my God,
that.
this guy's truly unbelievable. I
Yeah,
mean, he's got like an 8-pack, and he's
uh,
6'8", 300 pounds. Like,
he's
Jesus
hyper
Christ.
athletic. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, he's more athletic than most NFL linebackers, and he's about 50, 60 pounds heavier than them. It's tough to say who exactly is going to line up on him. We're going to throw out 3 different names. One might be surprising, but the Giants like to mix up their scheme a little bit. But you're going to probably see rookie Kayvon Thibodeau out
Yeah.
there. You're going to probably see Leonard Williams from time to time out there. You might even see big boy Dexter Lawrence out there. And speaking of Dexter Lawrence, very quickly, last week I said the Giants had no premium players on defense. That was a mistake. I did forget about Dexter Lawrence. He is a premium player. He has played himself
Definitely.
into that. But if Lane Johnson's out there healthy, can any of these guys have an impact the way they'd want to?
It'll probably be on the other side if so. I mean, Andrew Thomas is a great lineman as well, but you know, he doesn't compare to Lane Johnson. Really is a whole nother category. I look for that side of the ball to just be completely shut down. Like, trying to rush on that side, it's going to be like running into a brick wall literally every play. If you can find a guy who's willing to do that and just keep chipping away, they might eventually get through at the end, but it's going to be tough sledding for sure.
And Ryan, that's why we have different names out there as possibilities, because having one guy just take care of that all day probably isn't going to fly. So they got
Right.
to,
Even Aziz Ojulari might try to rush on that
sure,
side
I can
as
see
a
that
outside
too.
backer. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. The Sunday matchup in the early window is the one game in this playoffs that's not a rematch of the last year officially, because we're looking at Buffalo and Cincinnati. And this game's going to be in Buffalo. The
I thought it
first
was going to be in
game.
Cincinnati. Wait, did something happen to change that?
No, Buffalo had the better record, and they didn't have to do a coin toss. Yeah, yeah, oh boy.
Okay. Sorry, some
uh,
sarcasm there.
no, we got that's perfectly placed. I love it.
It
But
should be a home game for Cincinnati.
it could be if they had played that game and Cincinnati had won that game and everything else played out the same. There's no way to know that.
Right,
But
right,
if one thing is preordained, then everything's preordained.
right.
So if but again, for argument's sake, if they played that game, the Monday night game, and if Cincinnati had won, then yes, this game would be in Cincinnati. But they're going to get to play now, and it's going to be in Buffalo. And it's been a concern for Cincinnati going back to last year. It got a little better as the season went on, but now the offensive line's starting to rear its ugly head again with
Oh my
injuries
God.
concerns. And you can make the argument that when they line up Sunday, that rookie Cordell Volson might be their best lineman. And he's had a good year, but his matchup is probably going to be Ed Oliver from Buffalo's
Yeah.
defensive line. And Oliver, he's a high draft pick. People recognize him as good, but I still feel like he's underrated. Can he be Buffalo's defensive MVP in this game?
I think he definitely could be because, like you said, Jonah Williams out, probably Kappa out, Lael Collins out. I mean, the losing your best offensive lineman this time of year is going to be tough. Burrow's going to really have to play out of his mind and be very aware of where Oliver is. And I mean, Buffalo's got other guys too, but we're just focusing on him. But yeah, you definitely got to know where he's at because if not, he's going to be on top of you 10 yards in the backfield.
Right. And since he does get one favor that Von Miller won't be playing in this game, I've known that for a while. He's been out, but
Sure.
ooh, if he was there, that would be something.
I really do think this game being in Buffalo is going to make it a very, very tough game for
All
Cincinnati.
right.
We'll save our predictions for later, but
Absolutely. But the Bengals have a great defense, and they have a very high functioning defense at least, and they perform well when they need to. Can they do that against Stephon Diggs for Buffalo? And
right.
we think that Eli Apple may see him quite a bit. Is that a matchup that Buffalo should be looking to exploit?
I definitely think so. He and Eli Apple seemed to get banged up a little bit in this game. So you don't know how healthy he is either. And even if he is on Diggs, they still have Gabe Davis and Knox and Singletary. So you know, eliminating one top target is always great if you got a corner that can do that. But they have plenty of weapons still. So
Right,
I still think whoever he's not on is going to have a pretty big game.
right. And we're assuming that the weather's not going to be anything atrocious. We don't see
Right,
anything that indicates that. But even if it is, I mean, I think in bad weather, the receiver has the advantage because the receiver knows which way he's going and he
right.
can make his cut, and the corner doesn't. And you lose your footing real easy. And Allen ain't afraid to chuck that thing deep. So it
Wow.
could be a long day. If Eli Apple can play like his resume says he should, then he can change some things for Cincinnati, and he can allow coverage to roll in other ways if necessary, so that they don't have to focus on Diggs as hard. But Steven's right. Buffalo does have a wealth of talent all up and down their roster. This is the reason why I picked them to win the Super Bowl for the season. I'm like, from spot 1 to 53, they are the most stacked teams. And now for the main event of our show, maybe the main event of the wild card weekend, is a very highly traditional rivalry between San Francisco and Dallas. These two teams met 3 straight years, 92, 93, 94, in the NFC Championship game, which was basically at that time the Super Bowl. The winner of that game,
Yeah.
it was like a formality to go win the Super Bowl. They didn't play in the playoffs until 2021. They went 27 years without doing it, and now we're back, and it's a back-to-back type matchup for them. Last year was in the
Wow.
wild card round. This year is in the divisional. And this, to me, and as a Niner fan, I might be biased, but I don't think I am, has the best matchup in this round of the playoffs. We're talking about two guys at the top of their game, maybe at the top of the league. Trent Williams on the line for San Francisco, Micah Parsons on the line for Dallas. What a matchup that is. What's your thoughts on it, Steve?
Yeah, this is going to be probably the best matchup of the whole week. It's going to be like two Rams just running full speed headfirst into each other. I mean, both guys are about the best at their position in the entire league. So I'm sure, Parsons might get one, but Williams is probably going to hold his own. I lean towards Williams and the Niners as a whole.
And I like the sound of that. I guess Parsons might sneak in and grab one or two, or
Yeah,
at
he
least
might
get
get
some
one.
pressures. Yeah, but I think Williams has the opportunity to play better against Parsons than anyone else has. So that said, the Cowboys might try to flip him on the other side as well, too. But I think this is going to be the primary matchup. On the other side, we've been looking at corner receiver matchups throughout. We're going to take a look at a safety tight end matchup. Dallas is running out Dalton Schultz at tight end, who, when he's healthy this year, he's not giving eye-popping numbers, but he's getting it done in the red zone. And he is getting matched up most likely against the do-it-all Troy Polamalu clone that the 49ers ran out this season. That's Talanoa Hufanga, second-year, fifth-round draft pick turned first-team All-Pro. Is he going to have to watch Schultz more than you think he should? And if that's the case, does that affect the Niners' defensive game plan as opposed to what they've done all season?
So looking at the Cowboys from last night, I mean, Dak really seemed to heavily rely on Schultz, I think, especially in the red zone. But I mean, I think Fonga is, I mean, he really is a Palomalu clone. This guy is a freak. He's unbelievable. This matchup's going to be big because I think Schultz is a safety blanket a lot of times for Dak. And if he's taken away, you might get that Dak that throws 2 or 3 picks.
And the Niners did tie for the NFL lead in most interceptions this season. So that's an excellent analysis. All right, guys, like we said, we wanted to spotlight these matchups. Obviously, there are other matchups that are important, and these matchups aren't necessarily going to play out on every single play, but we wanted to put a spotlight on some guys who may not otherwise get it. You're not going to hear a whole lot of Lane Johnson talk in the intelligentsia of the NFL, and I use that word very loosely. It's all going to be Jalen Hurts, Jalen Hurts, Jalen Hurts, Jalen Hurts, Jalen Hurts, and obviously Hurts had a great season, and he's worthy of discussion. But football's the ultimate team sport, and we wanted to pay credence to that in a small way by allowing some of these trench matchups and some of these outside matchups to get some airtime. We do now want to go ahead and make our predictions. Again, we didn't pick against the spread last week. We're not worried so much about that. In the playoffs, we just want to see who wants to advance. So we went 5-1 last week. That sounds more impressive than it is, to be blunt and honest. But there's a lot of people out there who probably picked some upset. They probably picked Tampa Bay to win their game, or they picked the Chargers to win their game, or in my case, picked the Ravens to win their game, under the impression and the hope, maybe, as far as my prediction goes, the hope that Lamar Jackson was going to play. But we're going to go ahead and make our predictions. Kansas City hosting Jacksonville. Steven, you lead off this one.
Like I said earlier, it's the home of the Chiefs. I think Mahomes is Mahomes. Jacksonville, Cinderella, story's been fun. They did come back in a very impressive manner against a pretty bad team, though. I think the Chiefs' high-powered offense is too much. I think I'm going to go 34-21, maybe 34-17 Chiefs.
Okay, that's a sort of similar to their regular season matchup. Chiefs jumped out to a lead. Jaguars made a comeback but didn't close it. And you got to remember, folks, when a comeback like that takes place and is successful, it's usually the team that had the lead blowing it more than the other team making the comeback. Both things are in play. But if the team doesn't blow their lead, then any comeback attempt's going to fall short. So if it plays out like that, if the Chiefs do grab a lead, I don't see them letting it go. I can actually see the Chiefs getting to the 40s in this game. I think it'll wind up being high scoring based on some late plays. I'm going 41-24 Chiefs.
Yeah, one last thing about Jacksonville and ETN. I feel like it's really been a breakout year for him, and he reminds me a lot of your guy, Debo Samuel. Whether it's catching the ball, run the ball. If he goes off, he could make it interesting for a while. I think he's going to have to go off for Jacksonville to have that offensive game, but I think the Chiefs are just another level right now.
Yep, and it's safe to say that neither of us went on a limb for this game, and it's fine. I mean, the spread I think is 9.5. I think we both think they're going to cover that too. The next game on Saturday is the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the New York Giants. Again, a rematch of the regular season, a two-time rematch. I'm going to say that Philadelphia might be a little flat early in the game, but I think that will play itself out. I can imagine this being something like Giants 3, Eagles nothing at the end of the first quarter, and then something like 10-6 at halftime, where it seems like the upset might take place. But I think Philly will get over its doldrums, so to speak. They're going to be a little rusty, I think, coming in, but I think the talent wins at the end. I'm going to go ahead and say 24-13 Eagle victory.
Yeah, much like the Chiefs, you have to worry about the first rest thing. Will they come out a little flat? For some reason, I was thinking the same thing with Philly. Think they might come out a little flat. Giants coming off of a, dramatic end of their season, a first round win on the road. They're probably going to be feeling pretty good. Their defense is flying around, or Saquon, breaks one in the first quarter. You might see Philly fall behind a little, but I think this has been a special year for Hurts. That offense is, we mentioned Lane already, but, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. I think Philly wins fairly easy.
Okay, and that is going to be different than last season. We both picked the number 1 seeds to advance, where last season neither number 1 seed advanced. Tennessee not being a huge upset, but Green Bay losing to San Francisco kind of was. All righty, looking at now
Absolutely.
Buffalo and Cincinnati. So again, this is officially not a rematch, but we did see with our eyes these two teams play each other for a few minutes, and Cincinnati got the ball first, took it all the way down the field, scored a touchdown. Buffalo got the ball next, took it all the way down the field, couldn't complete the touchdown. They wound up settling for a field goal. Since he did a couple plays, maybe two plays on the next drive, and we all know what happened after that. The game was called off. So this game looks to me like it could be something similar to that, but I think the game being in Buffalo, unfortunately, gives Cincinnati a hill that is going to be too tall to climb. I think they're going to come out and look good. I think the offensive line problems are going to be just that, a problem. I can see Buffalo scoring either a defensive touchdown in this game or getting ridiculous field position, something like inside the 20-yard line, where they're able to get out a touchdown. I see something like Buffalo 30, 31, Cincinnati 20. What you got?
Yeah, I don't think you're very far off there. I think this game being played in Buffalo, even if the weather is okay, it's going to be cold, but if there's not a bunch of snow and wind, I think the injuries to the offensive line really is going to hurt Cincinnati. Cincinnati's got a high-powered offense. I think Cincinnati needs to control the clock and run the ball and get Mixon more involved. He was pretty much not there. And if it's not Mixon, it's got to be Pirine. They're going to have to try to control the clock and limit the offensive touches for Allen. Doing that with 2 or 3 linemen out is going to make it all the more difficult. Barring Burrow just playing out of his mind, I think Buffalo wins, and I think it might be by 10 or more, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we live in the general Cincinnati area. We have lots of friends that are Bengals fans, and we're not trying to hate on your team. We understand that last year you had similar line problems and was able to get into the Super Bowl as well. You also got to play Tennessee, kind of a fraud number 1 seed last
Right.
year. And this year, Buffalo, they've been the best team in football over the last 2-3 years. They just haven't had the hardware to prove it. And I picked Buffalo before the season to win the Super Bowl. Not something I'm going to steer away from now. So Bengals fans, I will stand up and tell you I'm wrong, should that be the case.
I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, I
I
mean, I would like to see Bengals fans happy. I mean, they've had a lot of reason not to be over the years. So, uh,
absolutely.
last game Sunday, and we suspected this would be the case once the Giants won their game, that the Niners would have to play the winner of Monday Night Football, and there was no way they were going to make that team play on Saturday. And
Right.
the game being in San Francisco also suspected would be the late game. So all that came to fruition. The Niners are going to host the Cowboys Sunday at 6:30 Eastern. Steven, I'll let you go first. I don't want you to be influenced by my pick, which we don't know what it's going to be, right?
No, I agree with you. Like I said, when I was growing up, man, the Niners Cowboys rivalry was arguably the best in the game. I hope this brings it back to that level, because that was a lot of fun. I like the Niners big. I like the Niners defense to make Dak look like Dak and throw maybe two or more interceptions. McCaffrey's playing at an all-world level right now on offense. They're just, to me, the Niners are the best all-around team in the league right now, and unless Purdy comes out and turns it over 3 or 4 times, I think the Niners roll.
And that's been the one thing about Purdy that I've been most appreciative of, as he's taking care of the ball. That's the only thing I ever wanted any of my quarterbacks to do. Just don't screw it up. You've got potentially the best set of playmakers in football, and if you don't, it's very close. Our
Right.
leading receiver was Brandon Ayuk, and he's always maybe the 4th person brought up in our offensive hierarchy. You put Samuel, Kittle, McCaffrey in whatever order you want. Some people might even put Elijah Mitchell right now higher than Ayuk. I understand Mitchell didn't have much of a game stat line running the ball. He carried the ball 9 times for 2 yards. That's almost impressive. But
Right.
he did score a receiving touchdown, and he was kind of taking those late carries as well. Yeah. The Niners offense will keep teams off balance better than most, because we have McCaffrey line up at running back and Debo at wide receiver, and the very next play that can be flipped, and nothing is lost, because
Right.
Debo plays like a running back and McCaffrey plays like a receiver. So it's like having 2 queens on a chessboard. It really is. And I think we have an opportunity to take some deeper shots and try to take advantage of Trevon Diggs's aggressiveness. And I think it could even be someone like Juwan Jennings to hit him for it. I mean, I'm a Niner fan. Don't get me wrong, but I will look at things objectively. I did pick TCU to lose
Right.
to Georgia. I'm not going to let my fandom color me. But the
Right.
Niners should not have a problem with Dallas. They really shouldn't. Not to say that it's going to be a blowout or anything, but we're more than capable of getting into the 30s in this game, and we shouldn't be letting Dallas get too far past the 20s. So, I mean, like 31-17 should be about the final score. Kyle Shanahan has done well, but he still makes me nervous. And I just like to think that we'll take that 14-point lead and hold on to it.
No, you're right. I forgot to give my score prediction, but I like 34-17. Yeah, 34-20. I think Niners will definitely get a turnover or two and just control the game in every aspect. If Dallas doesn't get their run game going and Dak doesn't have that play action threat, I think it could be a real long day for the Stars.
Right. So, folks, how'd you like that? We picked the home team favorite in every game, but at
Did we
least we
really?
told you why.
Wow.
We did. But at least we told you why. Um, Chances are, I think we're gonna miss one of these games. It's tough to go completely
Yeah.
vanilla in the NFL divisional round. I would say if one game is ripe for the upset, it would be Cincinnati. Would you agree with that? Or would you take someone else?
Yeah, I agree. I think Cincinnati's definitely got the weapons to pull an upset. They're just going to have to play a almost perfect game, and try to keep Josh Allen off the field. For some reason, just maybe because I watched them last week, I think the Giants could possibly pull an upset
Uh-huh.
just because it's a division game. You've played them twice, you know who they are, you know what they do, um, and they're healthy. So the Giants maybe upset alert, but I think the Chiefs roll and the Niners roll, and that's where we could be rolling to a Super Bowl at.
Yeah, that could be it. And the Giants are a team I'd definitely take with the points. I think it's a 7.5, 8 point spread, something like that. I haven't kept up with it since the line first came out, but keeping that within the spread, I think, is very viable. So we are forecasting a NFC Championship game of San Francisco at Philadelphia, and we are forecasting an AFC Championship game of Buffalo versus Kansas City in Atlanta. That would be the scenario should those two teams match up. So we stayed vanilla, but we told you why. Hopefully you can jive with our reasoning. And if we're wrong, we'll tell you why we're wrong next week. And if we're right, we'll tell you why we're right.
Yeah,
So
comment your picks. Yeah, like by all means, please comment your guys' picks. We'll gladly debate with you or talk it over with you.
yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna go ahead and kill my end of all of this. Just to reiterate, guys, please like, share, and subscribe. If you've come this far and you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do so. It really helps us out. YouTube has that whole algorithm thing. I don't exactly know how it works, but I kind of know how it works. Likes and shares and subscribes help. And we hope you enjoyed the show. We thank you very much. Going to kick it over to Steven for all this social media info that I can't get myself tied down into, but Steven thankfully is willing to fall on that sword for the show. So from me, have a nice day, everybody. Have a nice week. Got to drop it in to go Niners real quick, but over to Steven. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you guys all for listening, liking, subscribing. We're really climbing a lot on YouTube, so if you can go there, some more YouTube stuff may be in the works, some changes. We're talking a lot of ideas, but follow us on YouTube at Catching Flies, on Twitter at Catching Flies W1. Like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. I'll definitely be responding and interacting if you guys want to post your picks and talk any more about it. But look forward to talking to you next week. We'll have a bunch more football. Dive deep into the divisional or the championship rounds and go from there. So it's been a great week. Appreciate you all and look forward to talking to you next week. Go catch a fly.